Dave says this, morning, Mike, these meetings that are taking place in Lord Alley's place, I wonder if these properties have been checked for electronic listening devices. Well, that's a very good question. This is the other thing that I think worries people, is that all of this stuff going on in the shadows, all of this stuff going on which is not apparently official, it's unofficial, nobody's sure what the meetings are about, nobody's sure who's at them, nobody's sure what they're deciding at these meetings. What we know is that Lord Alley certainly seconded somebody from his own staff into the Labour Party to make selections for MPs who are now actually elected MPs. So there's a whole coterie of people who owe them their success to Lord Alley, and one of those people included in that group is, of course, Sue Gray's own son, who was in receipt of money from Lord Alley. You know, it's a very curious way to run a political party. Dave in Aberdeen says, good morning, Mike. Labour wheeling out Pat McFadden. Again, they don't get it. I know he acts within the spirit of the rules, but renting the house next door to the home he owns just to claim money, same trough, different pigs. Well, I had Pat McFadden on the show, I remember, some time ago, just before the election actually took place, and I asked him that very question about why he decided to move next door so that he could claim rent because mortgage claims were no longer allowed. And he said, I did everything within the rules. Same old mantra, same old je ne regrette rien. But let's talk now about Boris Johnson. Kevin Schofield's here, politics editor at the HuffPost. Kevin, very good morning to you.
Hi there, Mike.
I mean, if you were reading the Daily Mail, you'd think it was the only story in town, wouldn't you? I mean, it's literally been, you know, thousands and thousands of words printed over the course of the last few days, which I suppose tells you why they still think that Boris Johnson is a massive draw. I mean, he's certainly more interested in anything that's going on up at Tory Party conference.
Yeah, and it's obviously been timed very well to clash and, you could say, overshadow.
They can't be happy about that, can they?
No, exactly. It's the last thing that they need. They want all the focus of the attention to be on their leadership election. But yeah, the Mail have obviously paid and do pay Boris a lot of money to be a columnist, and they've obviously paid a lot of money to serialise his book. And yeah, I think we'll probably see a few more nuggets from it over the next few days. Well, let's face it, I mean, there's been some pretty... I mean, most of these were known, I suppose. I mean, the fact that he nearly was swept out to sea, which I remember at the time was kind of hailed as a kind of a typical Boris-type story, because nobody actually thought he was ever in any real danger. It turns out he actually was in quite a lot of danger. Boris convinced that COVID was made in a Chinese lab. Today's story, I believe Macron let migrants cross the channel in revenge for Brexit. Also, I don't think anyone would be too surprised that he said that. The one that I found extraordinary was the one from the weekend where he said he considered invading Holland to snatch the 5 million stolen vaccines that the EU was trying to hold on to. I mean, that just, I'm afraid, made me laugh. Yeah, I mean, what you've got to remember, obviously, Mike, is, as you well know, he is a journalist at heart, and I think he's got an eye for a headline more than maybe an eye for accuracy. I mean, if you actually read the story, I think he probably asked the military to draw up some plans as to how they could possibly get these vaccines back from Holland. And they trooped into number 10 and said to him, well, this is what we could do. We could effectively invade and get it.
Why don't we just go? However, I mean, you can imagine a conversation taking place saying, well, why don't we just go and get them or something, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. But they said to him, look, you would effectively be invading a NATO ally, which might not be the best idea, and he agreed. So it didn't actually go anywhere. I don't think it was ever... There was no chance of any military or special forces being sent into Holland to retrieve these vaccines. It is a bit crazy, but a great headline, which I suppose would keep Boris pretty well.
And another one today that Cameron threatened to F me up forever if I backed Brexit. You know, I mean, there'll be presumably quite a few people out there cringing at his recollections of some of the conversations that they had with him.
Yeah, and again, I think we kind of knew that from the time. I think probably it might even be mentioned in David Cameron's book that, you know, obviously we know that George Osborne and David Cameron lobbied Boris Johnson very hard to back Remain in the referendum, and they were very disappointed when he said that he was going to back Leave, and I think harsh words were exchanged. So yeah, again, no massive shock there.
No, indeed. And this kind of positions Boris Johnson now as a kind of, I suppose, some will hate me for saying this, but a kind of treasure of the nation, doesn't it? Because I suppose the next thing for him to do is to go around the talk circuit and be interviewed on various, you know, chat shows. You know, you can see him on all sorts of different chat shows around the world. And, you know, politics becomes a kind of a mere afterthought, really.
Yeah, I mean, you've no doubt that. I think that's where he's more suited to writing columns and appearing on chat shows rather than actually running the country. I think that's probably where his skill set is better suited. And yeah, and he does have a remarkable ability to shrug off controversy and still retain some affection from the country. But I think the chances of him coming back as a potential Prime Minister in the future, I think those have faded away now.
Probably, yeah. Well, I don't think they can afford him, because, he doesn't have Lord Ali on his side, does he? I mean, to be honest, he's looking a lot more competent than the current lot, which I would never thought I would ever say. But there we are. Kevin Schofield, politics editor at the HuffPost.